Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 386 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where Aldarion was gone long enough to be presumed dead twice over.
Well, is it any surprise Erendis went home to her family?
Seriously.
Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Sara Brown, the Shieldmaiden of Rohan, and I'm here with the man of the West, who has taken up the work of podcasting and been prudent in it, Alan Sisto.
Well, there will be more episodes in Numenor ere my day ends than... Yeah, that doesn't work. All right, folks, join us as Aldarion gets himself grounded, so he just decides to run away from home.
I was pretty sure that Aldarion was older than a teenager, but maybe
I think he's
I'm
older
wrong.
than 100, actually, or he's getting close to 100 at that point. Yeah.
Well, he's behaving like he's 13.
Seriously. And I should know, I have a 13-year-old, yeah.
And I bet he's better behaved than this.
Oh, much better, yeah.
So, no matter whether you came to Middle-earth through the books, the films, the TV show, or something else, each of you is welcome here in our common room. The Prancing Pony podcast continues in our 10th season of reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with conversations, many digressions, and even some speculations.
Yeah, pretty often. Now, we also include a few puns and bad jokes here and there.
Mostly Alan.
Yeah, mostly. I'd say sorry, but I'm not. So our purpose, though, our main objective really is to just dive deep into the lore, to discuss the story, our favorite characters and themes, as well as Tolkien's inspirations and a whole lot more.
And while we take the work seriously, the same cannot be said about ourselves. We're just a couple of friends chatting at the pub, and we're really glad you've joined us.
We are, and I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time for fan favorite Philology Fair. I have really missed this segment, and I have to say, when I was writing this episode, I realized, it had been a while, and I actually looked back on the calendar and the roadmap. We haven't had a Philology Fair on the PPP since the one you and I did in episode 369 last April on the Arkenstone.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in fairness, the entire episodes you did with James on Appendix F should probably count as episode-long Philology Fairs.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, but fair. I see what you mean.
Well, whatever the case, 6 months for a segment like this is definitely a long enough delay. So let's get our word nerd on. Now, this is going to feel a bit like a lightning round Philology Fair because we're not going to spend the entire time looking at just one word like we sometimes do, or like we did with Arkenstone in 369. Instead, we're going to dive into a few names from the story, starting with Aldarion. As we read early in the story, Aldarion's right name, that is the name he had when he was born, was Anardil. That is Quenya for friend of the sun. You look at the element Anar, meaning sun, right? We see that in Anarion, the brother of Isildur. And then, of course, the well-known Endil ending, which means lover or friend, like in Erendil. Now, the name that he took, Aldarion, is also Quenya, and while it isn't actually defined or given to us anywhere, it appears to mean son of trees, and it's fairly straightforward. The first element, Aldar, means trees. Now, that's a bit less common of an element in Quenya. I was only able to find one other example, and it's Aldemir, which means tree jewel. That's the name of the 23rd king of Gondor that ruled from Third Age 1490 to 1540 after the Kinstrife. But folks, you're going to be more familiar with the Sindarin cognate of Quenya Aldar, because that's Galath, as in the Galadhrim, the people of the trees. And then, of course, the ION suffix, the Aldarion, the ION, that's just the patronymic, means son of. So once he became king, like the other kings before him, he added that prefix Tar, meaning high, to his name. So Tar-Aldarion.
I'm finding it mildly ironic that he is son of trees, given what he does to, checks notes, trees.
Trees? Yeah, I need to find the Quenya suffix for slayer of.
Yes, I think it would be slightly different. Anyway, Erendis' name is a bit less clear, though linguist Paul Strack, the creator of one of our favorite language resources, online lexicon Eldamo, the Elvish data model, he suggests it is also Quenya, a compound of meaning alone or one, as in Eru, Eresia, and Indis, meaning wife or bride. And this one's interesting, of course, because the name Indis, as in Finwë's second wife and the mother of Fingolfin and Finarfin, is defined as great or valiant woman in the Shibboleth of Feanor. But in the etymologies, the element indis is glossed just as wife or bride.
That's interesting that the name is glossed differently from the element, even if it's the same word. You know what I mean? It's interesting.
Right. Now, if it's the latter, then her name seems to have meant something like lonely bride, which really does fit.
It's a little on the nose, but yeah.
It is a little bit, yes. So, what are we going to name this child? Let's name her Lonely Bride. This will have no effect on her future life whatsoever.
Right. None at all.
But we're not actually told if that was a prophetic birth name or a name ascribed to her after her marriage to Aldarion.
Right. We're reading the story so many years later, right?
Exactly. And she was also known, as we'll see next episode, as Tar-RedFlag, Lady of the Star Brow, because of the white jewel she wore on her brow, the one that was given to her by Aldarion.
Right. The diamond that yeah, exactly. Lovely stuff. Great or valiant woman, or which is singular great or valiant woman if we're looking at the name in this, but lonely wife or bride is, ouch.
Yeah. Also interesting that Indis is defined as great or valiant woman in the shibboleth of Feanor because she wasn't Feanor's favorite person.
I know. I thought the same thing. I mean, Feanor really kind of had it out for her, but, you know, the shibboleth has a lot of linguistic bits and details that Feanor would not have necessarily connected
No,
to.
but you can imagine Feanor defining it as horrible hag of a stepmother.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That would have worked better for him, I think.
I'm sure it would have. Lonely bride isn't lonely enough. Yeah.
Right.
Well, today, most likely, and if not, then early next episode, we will see Aldarion and Erendis ascend the Meneldur for Erukierme. And we already saw a mention of Eruhantele 2 weeks ago. Now, these two, along with Erulaitele, are the 3 prayers held each year atop the Meneldur. And we're going to look at them briefly in terms of the festivals when we get to the Erukierme. Word nerdery-wise, they're actually pretty straightforward. I mean, they all have Eru, the first element in each, and that's clearly a reference to Iluvatar, the one.
Right. And then Kierme means prayer in Quenya, but this is its only appearance and the etymology is unknown. And it's the only word in Quenya that uses that Kie sound, and traditional Quenya no longer has that sound as it was merged with Tie long before. So it's likely only used by the Númenóreans and their immediate descendants.
Yeah.
The Vanyar and the Noldor wouldn't say it like this. Maybe Tierme, but not Kierme, from what we could find.
That's interesting. So they would use the T if they were to use that same element.
Yeah.
Well, the next one's even easier. Erulaitele. I mean, you're likely familiar with laitele, meaning praise, like you and I, Sara, encountered when we walked through the field of Cormallin.
Oh, yes. Such a great chapter that was.
And I just love the musicality of that word. Laitele. The verb is laita with the nominalizing suffix. That is to say, the suffix that turns the verb into a noun is the lay bit. So, you know, it does mean praise, but it's laita is the verb praise, like to praise. But then the noun, like, let's heap praise upon him, as we did in the field of Cormallin. That's how it goes from laita to laitele. So eru laitele is just praising Eru. Finally, eruhantele is similar. That lay suffix is another nominalizing suffix. That's attached to a core verb not otherwise listed anywhere but here, hanta. Now, Vinyar Tengwar thinks that's derived from the root han, which means to increase or honor. So it's thanksgiving to Eru. So like Kierme, it is the only occurrence of that element hantele in Tolkien's work.
So Han, that would be its solo reference?
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I could not resist.
No, you could not. You shot first. That's fair.
Shots fired, and I think I might have hit.
I think so. I'll just do my Greedo impression and just collapse into the corner.
And folks, you can't see it, but that's exactly what he just did.
Just slumped over on the table. All right.
And I don't blame you. That was terrible. Anyway, moving very swiftly on. One of the places that is strongly connected to the story of Aldarion and Erendis is the port of Vinyalonde, which Christopher Tolkien translates for us as New Haven, describing it as the Númenórean harbour established by Tar Aldarion at the mouth of the river Gwathlo, afterwards called Londair.
So let's go ahead and break down Vinyalonde into its 2 relatively obvious components. Vinya, and Londe. For the first part, Vinya, we'll just look at a couple of issues of Vinyar Tengwar. A quick digression, by the way, because I just mentioned Vinyar Tengwar. For folks still newer to the fandom or to the show, or maybe just beginning their linguistic studies, Vinyar Tengwar is a linguistic journal published by the Elvish Linguistic Fellowship, known as the ELF. They're a group that focuses on a scholarly study of Tolkien's invented languages. They are also the publishers of Parma El Delamberon, often cited on this show, edited by Christopher Gilson, who's one of our keynote speakers, by the way, at the 2025 PPP Moot in just a couple of months, and it was just coincidental.
Ooh, I'd say the coincidence seems unlikely, but nope, it really is coincidental.
Yep.
So in Vinyar Tengwar number 47, we learn that Vinya is a Quenya word that means young, and it comes from the root win. There was also a deleted entry for Winya with a W, meaning new, fresh, young. That's in Vinyar Tengwar number 45. Now, we see this word in one other place, Vinyamar.
Yeah.
Now, you might recall that was the city built by Turgon in Nevrast that was abandoned when he and his people moved to Gondolin. And its name means new home. And it's where Tuor found some old armor that apparently, serendipitously, fit him perfectly.
So apparently once it stopped being a new home, they just up and left.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's old home, and we need to name it something else.
We're just going to call it
bother,
something.
so it's time to move.
Exactly. So we have new young as the first part of Vinya Londe. The second part, Londe, should ring a bell for those familiar with the story of Feanor and the kinslaying at Alqualonde. Alqualonde, the city of the Teleri on the shores of Aman, is a word meaning Swan Haven or Haven of the Swans, named for the beautiful ships of the Teleri, which burn too well, with their prows crafted to look like swans. But we have also seen that Londe suffix already in this story when we talked about the Bow of Returning. You may remember we read from that description of the island of Numenor, that gorgeous prose where we read about the most beautiful of all the havens of Numenor, Eldalonde the Green. And that's a Quenya name meaning haven of the Eldar. We'll see Londe once again later in this story when Aldarion builds another ship that he names Hiralonde, which means the haven finder.
Wait, Aldarion builds another ship?
That's all he knows what to do. Yeah.
Spoilers.
I know.
Okay, well, I think we have really dived deep enough into the language. I think it's time to dive deep into the chapter. What do you reckon?
I think we should.
Okay, over to you to start us off.
All right. At the open rebellion of Aldarion, the king rescinded his authority as lord of the ships and havens of Numenor, and he caused the guild house of the venturers on Eambar to be shut, and the shipyards of Romenna to be closed, and forbade the felling of all trees for shipbuilding. 5 years passed, and Aldarion returned with 9 ships, for 2 had been built in Vinyalonde, and they were laden with fine timber from the forests of the coasts of Middle-earth. The anger of Aldarion was great when he found what had been done, and to his father he said, "If I am to have no welcome in Numenor, and no work for my hands to do, and if my ships may not be repaired in its havens, then I will go again and soon, for the winds have been rough and I need refitment. Has not a king's son aught to do but study women's faces to find a wife? The work of forestry I took up, and I have been prudent in it. There will be more timber in Numenor ere my day ends than there is under your scepter." And, true to his word, Aldarion left again in the same year with 3 ships and the hardiest of the venturers, going without blessing or bow. For Meneldur set a ban on all the women of his house and of the venturers, and put a guard about Romenna. On that voyage, Aldarion was away so long that the people feared for him, and Meneldur himself was disquieted, despite the grace of the Valar that had ever protected the ships of Numenor. When 10 years were gone since his sailing, Erendis at last despaired, and believing that Aldarion had met with disaster, or else that he had determined to dwell in Middle-earth, and also in order to escape the importuning of suitors, she asked the queen's leave, and departing from Armenelos, she returned to her own kindred in the Westlands.
Oh, boy.
Pretty patient, if you ask me.
Way more patient than I would have been. Oh, boy.
10 years, man.
Yeah. 10 days I might have held on for. 10 years. No. So anyway, in what we can only say was just a question of time, Aldarion has openly rebelled against his father, and not just his father, of course, but his king.
Exactly.
So it's huge. And in a way, he is setting the stage here, or at least opening the door for the shadow to descend on Numenor in future generations.
Yeah. I mean, he's absolutely rebelling against the authority of the king. And it's what the kings themselves will do, as they rebel against the authority of Iluvatar and of Manwë.
Yep, and it's the first time we've actually heard of this kind of rebellion in Numenor.
Yeah.
So yes, this is definitely the first step towards what eventually happens, right?
Yeah. We're only in the fifth king of the kingdom, effectively. I mean, we've actually only the fourth king effectively, right? Because we had the son of Elros that just said, I'm 387. I don't need to do this.
I'm too old for this.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is pretty early in Numenorean history to see an open rebellion of the king's heir against the king. So Todder Meneldur does the only things that he actually has the power to do, right? He can't reach across the ocean and drag his son back to Numenor, but he can and does take away his iPhone, his TV, his car, his allowance, or in Second Age terms, he takes away his authority as the Lord of the Ships and shuts down his guild house, sorry.
Turns off the Wi-Fi, and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. You're done,
son. There are consequences for your behavior, son. And more than that, he shuts down the entire industry of shipbuilding and sailing.
Mm-hmm.
So he absolutely closes everything down. There's nothing left for Aldarion when he gets back. He closes the shipyards. He forbids the cutting down of a single tree to build ships. He has become anti-ship.
Yeah, he really has. You could cut down trees to build cabinets and houses and furniture and, what little toys for your kids. You can, cut down whatever just don't build a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's okay. IKEA is happy because they don't do flat packs of ships. So they're good.
I wonder if they would still do the meatballs in Numenor, though.
One imagines the Swedish influence is probably less in Numenor. So question for you as we kind of start to think through this. Is shutting down the guild house, or maybe even shutting down the industry, the shipbuilding industry, something that Meneldur might have done to greater effect, or maybe to better effect earlier on? I mean, or could he have, right? That's a political faction that's been gaining ground the entire time. There's no indication that it's unpopular at this point. So he's really going against the grain. But as it's been rising, would it have been easier to, nip this in the bud, proverbially speaking?
Oh, absolutely. But I think that would have been to endow him with the kind of second sight that he doesn't have.
That's fair. Yeah, we're looking at this in hindsight. Yeah,
sure, he should have stopped them in their tracks.
Yeah,
but so with a crystal ball, it would have been a great idea for him to have shut down the whole guild thing from the very start.
Yeah,
but it didn't seem like such a terrible idea at the beginning. And then it gained popularity, and then it becomes much harder to shut it down.
Yeah, the more popular it is, the more difficult it is to make that decision. And in this case, it took open rebellion for him to finally step that up.
Right. I mean, I have to be honest, the open rebellion gave him the excuse he needed.
Well, that's true. Yeah. If nothing else, at this point, he's probably going to have, if not the vocal support of most of the people, he'll have he had no other choice, right? I mean, I think the people in Numenor are going to be like, well, what else was going to happen? I mean, he is the king and he told you not to leave.
Right.
I might not like this, right? I might like the guild, but they had to know this is going to come. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, he is the king in the end. Yeah. And this was open rebellion against the king.
You're the lord of the ships and the havens, and you do this?
Yeah. And if Meneldur had done nothing, that would simply have made him look weak.
Oh, absolutely. And that
would have put him in an even worse position. But now
100%.
He and his son have gone pretty much no contact.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's easy to do when your son's on the high seas. Yeah.
Yes. So 5 years later, so that's Second Age 829, according to the chronology at the end. He comes back to Numenor with, and this is the ultimate sticking a finger up at his father, right? He's got two more ships than he left with. I mean, I just have this mental picture of him standing in the bow at the front of these 9 ships going, nya, 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 nya. But then he has behaved a bit toddler-esque for a lot of this story.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
So he'd stopped at Vignalonde, where 2 more ships were built.
That is wild. And he built those ships because he needed the cargo room, because they were all filled with trees cut down from the Middle-earth forests. And now I want to just prepare you folks. We will get to the deforestation of Middle-earth in just a bit, because this is really important. But it is interesting, and I want you to take note how aggressive he is, Aldarion, cutting there in Middle-earth, while, as we will see, being much more of a conservator in Numenor.
Yes, indeed.
Very different attitudes, yeah.
Very different. It is the attitude of the colonialist. Home must be protected. Anything else is up for grabs.
Yeah.
So he comes back and he discovers that everything has changed.
Yeah.
The guild house is closed. The shipyards have been shut down. The timber industry, gone.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about this before in Tolkien. He's always giving people chances to recognize their errors. Does this make Aldarion repentant? Does he have regret that his actions have led to all of this? No, of course not. Yeah, exactly. Lol. His anger was great, and he lays into his father, look, if I can't fix my ships in these closed shipyards and my guild house has been closed, I'm out. I'm just going to leave again.
After all, it was a rough journey. My ships need repair. Note that the footnote here says that this mention of the winds having been rough should, quote, be understood as a portent.
Ooh. And
both Alan and I going,
yeah,
at the same
I guess
time.
I'm wondering, would it be fair to say that both Aldarion and Meneldur should have understood this as a portent themselves? Or is this just a portent for the reader? Like, you know what I mean? Is this something that Aldarion should have said, you know what? It's you thought it was rough now, because I promise you it's going to get rougher here. That's just interesting. Like, understood as a portent.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, but let's remember that it says right back at the beginning that the ships of Numenor have always been under the protection of the Valar.
And they have, yeah. We'll talk about that too, yeah.
Exactly. So if they're under the protection of the Valar, then you would not expect them to be thrown around the seas and subject to the damage caused by high winds, because they are protected. But it doesn't seem that Aldarion has been 100% protected here. I mean, they haven't sunk his ships.
No, not
but
yet.
But they've thrown him around a bit.
They have, yeah. And
like
they're not going to
warning?
sink any. Yeah, you'd think so, yeah. And then I love this, like, randomly out in the middle of nowhere. Go back to that reading, and he's like, if I'm not to be welcome here and I can't do my job, I'm going to leave. Is there nothing else for me to do but look at women and find a wife?
Yeah.
Like, what? That is a non sequitur, sir. Nobody mentioned a wife. Nobody mentioned the search for a wife. Nobody mentioned Erendis. But Aldarion immediately goes there. Am I supposed to do anything but look at women to try to get married? Well, first of all, there are worse fates in life. Second, really, did anybody say anything about this?
I wonder if that's a little bit of his conscience pricking him there.
I think it is. I think it absolutely is.
Because he knows he left Erendis high and dry, if you'll pardon that pun. And he's not done anything about it. And he's been away for another 9 years. Yeah. Which to him is 10 minutes. To Erendis, it's 9 years.
Yeah. My goodness. It's such these long trips. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes on his bit about his forestry. He says he's been prudent and that there will be more wood for shipbuilding at the end of his reign than there is under the authority of Meneldur. I'll do a better job at this than you. And, okay, but what about the rest of being
I was going to
king?
say, you've got this, you've got one job, but it's a big job. It's the job of king. And you're looking at only, well, there's going to be more trees when I'm done.
Well, there might be more trees in Numenor, but clearly there's not going to be more trees in Middle-earth.
No, we'll definitely be talking about that. Just a quick clarification, because I want to make sure folks are catching the timeline. This trip was only 5 years. He was gone for 5 years. It was the 9 ships is what I think. So
that's the 9 ships, yes.
And then he's about to be gone on a 14-year journey, but that's we'll get to that in a little bit, because we actually don't even get through all 14 years of it in this reading, because we get to the 10-year mark and Erendis is like, I'm out. So anyway, just wanted to clarify that real quick.
Oh no, thank you for that, because there are so many trips abroad here that he's going on.
Many.
It's like, okay, how many years was this one?
It's wild.
So anyway, what did he think would be the reaction upon his return? What was he expecting? What do you think he would find? I mean, did he think fatted calf was going to be the welcome?
I mean, it's all exactly the kind of consequences that you would expect any king to cause to happen for somebody who committed open rebellion.
Right.
I mean, if Valandil had done this to Tar-Elendil under the previous kingship, Tar-Elendil would have done the exact same thing.
Of course, because he's king.
Right.
And you've got to show that you're the one who's in charge.
I told you to do this. You did this. So I'm shutting these things down.
There are consequences for actions, consequences. My boy.
Absolutely. It's not like 5 years forgives all.
No.
So sure enough, it's like, if I can't stay here, then I'm going to leave. So he leaves in the same year. So he's just been gone for 5 and he's about to leave again in the same year. But this time it's a much smaller crew and fleet, right? We get 3 ships instead of 9 or the 7 that he left with, and only the hardiest members of the guild.
So clearly some people have thought, oops, better not actually do that again.
Yeah, not going to hitch my wagon to that horse. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, after all, Meneldur had banned them and he'd closed the guild house.
Yeah.
And he'd also surrounded the harbors with his guards. And he forbade any of the women of his house from giving Aldarion the green bough. So whereas before there was a little loophole.
Yeah. Wink, nudge, nudge, fine, you go ahead and do it, but I'm not going to.
He closed the loophole.
He did. He absolutely did.
And that's why Aldarion left without the green bough of returning, which continues this break with tradition.
That's the thing. I mean, Númenóreans have a lot of tradition, and he just is thumbing his nose at all of it. But you thought he was gone a long time before. You ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, he is now gone long enough that the people of Númenor are genuinely afraid for his safety.
Yeah. And even his dad, the king, is worried.
Yeah.
Even though he knows that the Valar have actively protected the mariners and the ships of Númenor, subject to the rough winds that we were just talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Though.
Yeah, we might not sink you, but we're going to make sure you feel the wrath
a little
here.
Queasy. Need a little Dramamine.
Exactly. Quick mention, by the way, of the Akallabeth here in the footnote, where we're reminded that during Ar-Pharazôn's reign as the last king of Númenor, this protection was finally withdrawn. That's where we read, ever and anon, a great ship of the Númenóreans would founder and not return to haven, though such a grief had not till then befallen them since the rising of the star.
Yeah. So in other words, they never lost a great ship in the entire history of the kingdom until the time of Pharazôn. So for more than 3,000 years, the Valar protected the ships.
They even protected Aldarion's ships. That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 10 years later, Poor
Erendis, honestly.
After a 5-year journey, he comes back, throws a fit, and leaves again. Erendis finally that's it. I give up. He's dead. He's found a wife in Middle Earth. Nice little hobbit to settle down with.
Well, thanks for that visual.
Heads off to her own homeland.
I don't blame her.
No.
Oh, the bit that really caught my eye, though, was that note. She also left to escape the importuning of suitors. I love that word, importuning.
Importuning. What a word that is.
It's fantastic.
It really is. It's for those of you who don't, maybe because it is not a word that we hear very often, it does mean to harass somebody persistently, beg, beseech, implore. So we're talking about people who just can't take no for an answer.
Yes, red flag, red flag.
Just leave the girl alone. I get why they're approaching her, because clearly Aldarion is not interested. I mean, sure, he brought you a diamond, but he's been gone for 15 years.
Yeah.
How about
Are you going
date?
to take a hint, woman?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but,
and she's still beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I'm sure that the suitors, it's not gone unnoticed by these suitors that she is now getting on a little bit in her years.
So maybe they think their odds are a little better now.
Exactly.
I tried 8 or 9 years ago, but that was when Aldarion came back with that diamond. So she rejected me. But now, one of them's just going to say it's easier to get killed by a terrorist after the age of 30 than it is to get married after the age of 30.
Good grief.
There's some movie quote I don't remember, but it's terrible. It's obviously not true.
But it also shows that Erendis is absolutely 100% not interested.
She's not interested. We saw that earlier, right? Swipe left, or swipe. I don't know about which one's which, but she's saying no to all of them once her heart has been won. as Meneldur tried to explain, or actually, no, I think it was Almarian who said, Heart's already won. That part's done.
Yeah.
Whether he knows it or not, whether he accepts it or not, she wants him and nobody else. And we've got to deal with that fact. So
I find it fascinating, though, that even though she swiped right on Aldarion and left on everybody else, it's just incredible to me that after all of this time, she's still so much in love with Aldarion that she doesn't look at anybody else at all. That
does seem a little naive at best.
Yeah.
I mean, because when we look at the timeline, right, it's 10 years. So now it's Second Age 839. If we look at the timeline of his cruises, of his journeys, Aldarion has now been at sea for nearly 15 years straight. I mean, he came back from the 5-year journey and left, and he's been gone for 10. But he's also been gone 19 of the last 23 years and 26 out of the last 33 years.
Yeah. Nothing says, I love you, want to marry you, I want to be with you, like leaving
like
for 26
leaving.
of 33 years.
That's just insane. That's 75%. It's more than 3/4 of the time.
Yeah.
He's just gone.
He just ain't that into you, girl.
No, seriously. I mean, oh my goodness. So she's like, I'm out. Yep.
I'm out. And she heads home, and we'll chat more about her home in the Westlands in a later reading today.
Now, soon we'll get to Aldarion's return. Well, I say soon. It's actually 4 more years, but in podcast terms, we'll get to it real soon. We won't make you wait that long. Can you imagine if we were doing the podcast in real time?
Oh my goodness.
We're going to cover Aldarion and Erendis over the next 150 years. My great-grandchildren will tell you the end of the story.
We passed this burden down through the generations.
So before we do get to Aldarion's return, I do want to take a minute to thank the amazing community that has grown up around this show. After all, there is a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
Just as well. Yeah. Now, the PPP really does have a warm and welcoming listener community. If you've got questions or you just want to talk about how much you love Middle-earth, be sure to check out our common room on Facebook and across all social media. On Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. And yeah, there's a page, but you're going to want to join that group for the great fan community.
You absolutely will. Now, on every social media platform other than Facebook, we're just at Prancing Pony Pod. And you can find us on Reddit at our subreddit at r/Prancing Pony Pod. Be sure to check out my daily show. That's Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and on your favorite podcast apps. That's where you can get your daily Middle-earth fix with everything from Middle-earth Map Mondays to First Aid Fridays. Be sure to watch or listen at youtube.com/@PrancingPonyPod. But we're going to get back into the story and see just how much longer Erendis has to wait for Aldarion to show up.
Oh my goodness. Okay. But after 4 years more, Aldarion at last returned, and his ships were battered and broken by the seas. He had sailed first to the haven of Vignalonde, and thence he had made a great coastwise journey southwards, far beyond any place yet reached by the ships of the Númenóreans. But returning northwards, he had met contrary winds and great storms, and scarce escaping shipwreck in the Harad, found Vignalonde overthrown by great seas and plundered by hostile men. 3 times he was driven back from the crossing of the Great Sea by high winds out of the west, and his own ship was struck by lightning and dismasted, and only with labour and hardship in the deep waters did he come at last to haven in Númenor. Greatly was Meneldur comforted at Aldarion's return, but he rebuked him for his rebellion against king and father, thus forsaking the guardianship of the Valar and risking the wrath of Osse, not only for himself, but for men whom he had bound to himself in devotion. Then Aldarion was chastened in mood, and he received the pardon of Meneldur, who restored to him the lordship of the ships and havens, and added thereto the title of Master of the Forests. Aldarion was grieved to find Erendis gone from Armenelos, but he was too proud to seek her, and indeed he could not well do so save to ask for her in marriage, and he was still unwilling to be bound. He set himself to the repairing of the neglects of his long absence, for he had been nigh on 20 years away.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
So we've jumped in the timeline now to Second Age 843 after 14 years at sea, but really 19 because he was only back for a little bit. He makes it back, but if his last return was surprisingly positive, right? 2 extra ships, all the ships filled with lumber. This one carries bad news.
Yeah, no ships have been sunk.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about last reading, that didn't happen until Pharazon's reign, some 2,500 years later than this story takes place. But Aldarion's ships are beaten up. And Vignalonde, well, that's lost. And we'll get to that in a minute.
We will. I mean, after stopping there on the way south, all was well. And that's when they head further south. They make it all the way to the Harad. And I'm not going to lie, that is some impressive journeying. It's further south than the Númenóreans had ever gone before. It's a long, long way.
Yeah, but they barely escape with the ships. And then when we get back to the mouth of the Gwathlo, well, that's where we learn that Vignalonde, the shiny, pretty, lovely new harbour that Aldarion built sometime during his voyages that took place between 750 after founding the guild and 800 when his father commanded him to stick around, it had been overthrown by the ocean itself. So much for his skills as a harbour developer.
Yeah.
And also plundered by hostile men.
And that plundered by hostile men is going to prompt a pretty significant sidebar. This is the best place to talk about the subject of deforestation in Numenor, or I'm sorry, deforestation in Middle-earth by Numenor. And I want to take a look at this whole issue of plundered by hostile men from that different perspective, from the viewpoint of the native dwellers of the land near Vignalonde. Keep in mind that the story of Aldarion and Erendis that we're reading is a Númenórean history, so it's not going to look too askance at Aldarion's actions. I mean, after all, he is a very important king, and he does some really important things, establishing that relationship with Gil-galad, which will lead to Númenor coming in and saving everybody's bacon later in the Second Age. But
to get a fuller picture here, let's go to the history of Galadriel and Celeborn. And yes, sorry, this means you'll cover this again when you cover it with James later this season.
Anyway.
Can never have too much Galadriel and Celeborn, right?
Fair enough.
So, in an appendix to the history of Galadriel and Celeborn, specifically Appendix D, we learn about the port of Lond-Dire, which is the name later given to the place currently referenced as Vignalonde.
Now, we do get some great descriptions of the lands in this region, as well as some cool word nerdery on Gwathlo. But what matters in that appendix for our reading today, for our study of Aldarion and Erendis, is this historical look at the area. But in the earlier days, at the time of the first explorations of the Númenóreans, so now we're talking about between 750 and 800 when Vignalonde was established, the situation was quite different. Minhiriath and Enedwaith were occupied by vast and almost continuous forests, except in the central region of the Great Fens. The changes that followed were largely due to the operations of Tar-Aldarion, the Mariner King, who formed a friendship and alliance with Gil-galad. Aldarion had a great hunger for timber, desiring to make Numenor into a great naval power. His felling of trees in Numenor had caused great dissensions.
I think there's some very, very interesting language.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that Tolkien repeats great 3 times, great hunger, great naval power, great dissensions. Exactly.
Yeah. That is not coincidental at all. Tolkien's so purposeful with words.
There is no way he went, I can't think of anything else to say. I'm just going to use the word great 3 times. We're meant to notice this, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. We really are. And I thought it's interesting that it's his felling of trees in Numenor that caused the dissensions. We talked about this before. There have been problems, right? So, his father has banned chopping down trees for the building of ships. That's the dissension that we're talking about here later on. And it's so interesting to get this different spin on this exact same moment in history.
Yes, absolutely. And let's have a look at some of the other words that Tolkien uses that I think really point us to where we're going with this and the potential consequences.
Yeah.
Because he says Aldarion has a great hunger for timber. I mean, the hunger, think about it. This is a devouring, consuming kind of desire, right?
Yeah. It wasn't he had a need for timber.
No, a hunger.
Yeah.
And desiring to make Numenor into a great naval power.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to want Numenor to have a great fleet of ships for exploration and, for mapping out the world and all that kind of thing. But we have the word power
for
here.
a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you are designing a navy, then that does imply that you are going to use that navy to exert your power.
Yeah. That's what a navy is. It's projection of power to another. I mean, you can have a standing army, but a navy is going to, by definition, be off the coast of your land. It will be elsewhere. It is a projection of power.
It is indeed.
It is not a coincidence that he uses the word power here.
Not at all.
We can hear about the Guild of Explorers and we can think of it as being about exploration. And I think it's fair to say that initially it is. And what we have to remember is that this Appendix D in the history of Galadriel and Celeborn that we're reading is, like the story of Aldarion and Erendis, written much later with some benefit of hindsight and being able to say, yeah, maybe it was exploration at first. But what came of it was that Aldarion. So here we're not talking about the Aldarion we're reading about now. We're talking about the Aldarion as king later on. That's when he has this great hunger, and he goes from wanting to make Numenor an exploratory power and to learn about the world and to explore the Guild of Explorers. Instead, he later, maybe not Aldarion now in the story, but Aldarion later in the story, has this hunger and this desire to become powerful.
Yeah. And that's when we discover what Aldarion himself discovered. And the text tells us this. In voyages down the coast, he saw with wonder the great forests, and he chose the estuary of the Gwathlo for the site of a new haven entirely under Numenorian control. Gondor, of course, did not yet exist. There he began great works that continued to be extended after his days. This entry into Eriador later proved of great importance in the war against Sauron, Second Age 1693 to 1701, but it was in origin a timber port and shipbuilding harbour. That's Vignalonde, strategically important 900 years later, but at first intended to harvest trees and build their big ships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see it from this sort of mostly neutral viewpoint, right? We're not talking about how great Aldarion is, and we're also not criticizing him yet, at least not
yet.
Openly. We're subtly making these points that he has this hunger for timber, but it's very interesting. And you realize that obviously the great works had to be extended after his days because things get, torn down by hostile people.
Yes,
Why?
indeed. Yeah.
Well, they get torn down because these forests and lands were not empty, were they? They weren't Aldarians for the taking, and I think that's what's important. The text there in Appendix D tells us the native people were fairly numerous and warlike, but they were forest dwellers, scattered communities without central leadership. They were in awe of the Numenorians, but they did not become hostile until the tree felling became devastating. Then they attacked and ambushed the Numenorians when they could, and the Numenorians treated them as enemies and became ruthless in their fellings, giving no thought to husbandry or replanting. The fellings had at first been along both banks of the Gwathlo, and timber had been floated down to the haven, Lawn Dire. But now the Numenorians drove great tracks and roads into the forests northwards and southwards from the Gwathlo, and the native folk that survived fled for Menhiriath. And we talked in that earlier reading about how interesting it was that Aldarion was giving thought to replanting in Numenor.
Yeah.
And now we see exactly why he didn't give a thought to that here in Middle-earth and how it's caused an entire people to flee the area.
Yeah, indeed. And if we just look quickly back to the little bit that I read, the important bit here is the site of a new haven entirely under Numenorian control.
Yeah.
Right. This is colonialism, right? Yeah. Where you go to this other place and you plant your flag and you say, everything here now belongs to us. And I don't care if anyone else lives here.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter to us.
No.
Everything here is now ours for the exploiting, for the taking, and we don't have to worry about anybody else. And if they don't like it, then we're just going to kill them.
Or they can leave. We're not going to stop you. Yeah. We're not here to necessarily kill all the native people here, but we're here to take the land, and you're going to have to get up and go.
Yeah, I mean, it says the native folk that survived fled.
Yeah, because they had been treated as an enemy. I mean, sure, you can say, well, the natives attacked them first, but they didn't attack them initially. They were in awe. They were afraid of them because, of course, they could see the Numenorians were a mighty people. They didn't become hostile, that text says, until the tree felling became devastating.
Yeah, there's a word.
That's significant. This isn't just, they're coming in and taking some of the trees down. They're completely clear cutting entire regions of the forest, destroying the ecosystem, destroying their ability to live off the land. Because the deer are leaving, the game animals are leaving because the forests are being devastated. This is absolutely significant. And they are, no wonder at that point, they have no choice but to try to defend themselves by attacking the Númenóreans. And then, of course, you get that open hostility between the two sides. Yeah. And I just want to point out, folks, please make sure you come back after the winter break when James and I talk about Tal Elmar, because this theme comes up again very strongly, very heavily.
Very strongly, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth also noting, or at least remembering, what Tolkien thought about the environment.
Oh, yeah.
So
his love of trees.
What is Tolkien saying here when the Númenóreans are not just destroying environment, but in the destruction of environment, they are ripping down trees?
Yeah.
Think about that from Tolkien's point of view, and I think that tells us what he's saying about the Númenóreans.
Yeah, he's not saying these are the good guys here. When you're ruthless in your fellings, giving no thought to husbandry or replanting.
Are we the bad guys?
Wait a minute. Yeah. So, it's really troubling what they're doing here. Now, again, a lot of this we're looking into the future, but Aldarion is behind all of this at the beginning. I mean, it's very unlikely that these great roads and tracks going north and south in the river, that probably wasn't done during Aldarion's lifetime.
No,
because it would have taken that long just to clear the timber from the riverbanks up and down the length of the river. But clearly he set a tone for what our objective is. Like you said, under Númenórean control. This isn't, hey guys, I know this is your land and we're cool with that. We'd like to build an outpost here. Could we be like strategic partners? And we will need some trees, but we'll cut in areas that you're not living and we'll work with you to find the right places. No, under Númenórean control. Like you said, we're here. This is ours. Take it or leave it. Yeah.
That's the important thing, isn't it? Okay, so we learn that the refugees from here ended up in Dunland for the most part. They didn't go north of the Baranduin because they feared the elves. And interestingly, they didn't go south to the Cape of Andrast because of the Druidang. But that's another episode.
Yeah, it is. We'll get to that when we get to this story. Yeah,
exactly. For this story, what matters is what comes next. And the text tells us, the devastation wrought by the Númenóreans was incalculable. For long years, these lands were their chief source of timber, not only for their shipyards at Londire and elsewhere, but also for Númenor itself. Shiploads innumerable passed west over the sea. The denuding of the lands was increased during the war in Eriador, for the exiled natives welcomed Sauron and hoped for his victory over the men of the sea. Wow. I mean, it's a bad idea linking up with Sauron, but you can hardly blame them. Right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
Well, ish in this case, but you get it.
Yeah.
And you can bet that Sauron totally took advantage of this.
I mean, that's exactly what he does. Yeah.
Of course. And we're told that while he didn't have the numbers to attack the port, which was then known as Londire directly, he used these people, quote, as spies and guides for his raiders. And then after the war, we read that, quote, most of the old forests had been destroyed. The Gwathlo flowed through a land that was far and wide on either bank, a desert, treeless but untilled. Oh, man.
When you combine that with what you mentioned earlier about Tolkien's love of trees, you can absolutely see what he's saying.
Yeah.
The devastation, the denuding, the desert.
Right.
This is awful. And he talked about incalculable, innumerable. It's almost unimaginable what they've done.
It is.
It's taken them a long time to do it. Obviously, I mean, modern technology, we could clear cut a forest that size and, a whole lot. It wouldn't take hundreds of years to do it. But over the course of time, by the time the war was over, the forests were just gone. And, we hear about this later. Treebeard talking about there was once a time where, we could go from here all the way up to the old forest without, putting a foot on the ground, or, where a squirrel could do that. You realize this is the forest he's talking about.
Yep.
This is the place, and it's gone. Why is it gone? Númenor, the good guys.
Yeah, the ones who were the special ones, right? Who got the land of gift because they were the special ones.
Yeah.
But with this, Tolkien is telling us that this is now the mindset of the people of Numenor.
Right. Or at least of the leaders of Numenor, and presumably of enough of the people that there's a problem, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It was a bit of a sidebar, folks. I just feel like
Good
it was
one.
really important to bring it in here. I felt like this is the best place to bring it, and because it puts Aldarion's actions into perspective. I mean, even if it was also the actions of later Numenorian kings that exacerbated this, he is the one who began the exploitation. He's the one who set the tone regarding the treatment of the land and the native inhabitants. And of course, more for sure on Imperial Numenor and its treatment of the natives of Middle-earth when we get to that story of Tal Almar.
Yeah. So back to the text. We learn that it took him 4 tries to sail back home, with 3 of them resulting in being driven back by high winds. And there's that portent we were talking about in the last reading. It's almost like the Valar didn't want him to come back.
You think?
I know. Isn't that interesting? And he even loses the mast of his own ship, the Palaran, when it's struck by lightning. I mean, the only other thing you need are the Eagles of Manwë, frankly.
Seriously, deliver the message. Though whenever I read the word struck by lightning, all I can think of is Bilbo. Struck by lightning, struck by lightning. And so now I'm picturing Aldarion on the deck of a ship, struck by lightning, struck by lightning. Eventually, though, they do make it back. Again, 14 years later. And Meneldur's reaction is, it's something. It's interesting. I mean, he's comforted that his son has come home, but then he rebukes him for the rebellion. Totally feels like when your kid's supposed to be home at 8, they crawl in at 11, and you give them that tearful hug. Oh, I'm so glad you're home. I was so worried about you. You're grounded for 6 months. Go to your room.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm so glad you're home. I love you. You're in deep trouble. Yeah.
Yes. It's that I'm not angry with you. I'm just so disappointed.
Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he rightly points out that by rebelling against the king, not just his papa, he's, quote, forsaking the guardianship of the Valar and risking the wrath of Osse.
Osse's pretty much wrathful all the time, so you don't want to risk his wrath. Yeah.
Yeah. And in another correct jab at his son, and this one I think really hits, he points out that it's one thing to do that for yourself, but it's another thing entirely to take that risk for your men.
Yes. That really struck me. And I think you're right. I think that is maybe the thing that finally broke through, because we'll see Aldarion's reaction in a second. But I want to point out just how much of another Beorhthelm's son moment that is.
Yes.
Right? This is that overmode. If you read that story, and it's not a Middle-earth story, it's basically a retelling of the Battle of Maldon, where you have the English for the Anglo-Saxon force on one side, you have the Vikings invading from the other. There's a tiny little strip of land between the island, or the end of the peninsula on which the Vikings landed, and they can't come over and have the fair fight because it's this narrow strip of land. And finally they get to Beorhtnoth and they say to him, come on, man, let us come over and we'll have a fair fight. And Beorhtnoth says, oh, sure, let's do the chivalrous thing and we'll have a fair fight. And he gets himself killed along with most of his men. And that's the criticism that Tolkien has of him in this story, is like, it's a good thing, this northern spirit, but when you take it too far and you extend it, when you have a responsibility to the people underneath you, you don't have the right to take that action.
Right.
Because it's overweighed by the duty to the men beneath you.
And of course, Tolkien would have seen things like this in the First World War.
Absolutely.
You know, the lions led by donkeys kind of idea.
Very much so.
Where some Egypt at the top makes a decision and everybody else dies because of it.
Exactly. When you get, tens of thousands of men having to jump out of the trenches into machine gun fire.
Marching in formation, because that's how the stiff upper lip of the English do it.
Or it's how wars were fought in the Napoleonic period relatively right before. There's so many complicating factors when you look at World War I, and you realize war had changed so dramatically in just the previous 50 years. It's awful, but you're right. There's very much a sense that Tolkien would have understood that from his own perspective. The chateau generals telling these men what they needed to do, and safely ensconced in their chateaus, as the name suggests.
Indeed. But this is interesting because in a response actually honestly did not expect.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed
Aldarion
this.
is properly humbled.
Yeah, chastened
That's
in
got to be a
mood.
first.
I love that. Yeah, I respect that.
Indeed. Love that for him, but it doesn't last long enough. That's a whole other section of the story. Now, I wish there was a bit more here about the dialogue between father and son, but whatever was said seems to have gotten through to him, and Aldarion is actually humbled.
Yeah.
Wow. He actually stops and thinks about somebody other than himself for once in his life.
And I think it's the men under his command. Like you said, I think that's the thing that gets through to him.
Indeed. And he is forgiven. And he has his positions restored to him and more, because now he gets the title Master of the Forests, and again with that irony scratching at the screen.
Seriously, it really is. So, good for him. Meneldur has made some decisions. We can, argue about whether or not they were good decisions. But we move now from Aldarion, the mariner and king's heir, to Aldarion, guy somewhat vaguely interested in somebody whose name I forget. Erendis.
I'm amazed he still remembers her, honestly.
Seriously. I mean, he is sad to see that she's gone from the city. Dude, you've been gone 14 years just after I've been gone for 5 years. You're lucky she remembers your name.
Oh, you are not kidding.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, how would he have responded if he come back and there's Erendis married with kids, and she's like, Aldarion who?
And she would have had every right to do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But in the first of so many unsurprising moments, he's described as being too proud to go after her. Man, it's a small island.
I mean, okay, I'm going to be pedantic here. It isn't actually small, but it is an island, right? It is somewhere in the neighborhood of 167,000 square miles, folks. This is something we talked about on a description of the island of Numenor last season. So it's actually twice the size in terms of land area of the island of Great Britain. Still, though, he's the king's heir. It cannot be hard to track this woman down.
Yeah, I mean, where else is she going to have gone apart from
home?
Her home?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like he doesn't know where that is.
Exactly.
Right, but it's more than just his pride. He knows he can't go after her unless it's to ask her to marry him, and he's still not willing to do that.
That's mind-blowing.
Good Lord.
Not
keeping
willing
in mind
to be bound.
I think that to be bound tells you everything about how he views marriage.
100%.
Yep.
100%. He does not view marriage as a partnership or as an opportunity to spend time with this woman that he loves. Oh, if I marry her, then I'm bound. I'm tied up.
Sara taps her fingers in irritated motion upon the table.
Do I need to point at the sign again?
Don't make me tap the sign.
Seriously.
But, let's keep in mind, he's 143 years old, going on 13.
Yeah,
and she is 72, right?
Yeah. No spring chicken.
This needs to be seen in the context of Numenorian ages and stuff like that. He's roughly equivalent to 49 years old. Good Lord, he needs to grow up. While she is roughly 35.
Yeah.
So, she's getting to the point where if she leaves it much longer, there's not going to be any family for her, is there?
No, and she's certainly aware of this. I mean, we talked before that it was not uncommon for men in Elros's line to delay marriage for a significant amount of time. But then if you're going to do that, dude, you owe it to her to say, do not stick around for me. I will never marry you. Like free this woman, for crying out loud, man.
I know, he keeps us stringing along, doesn't he?
He does.
Because
really
he absolutely could. There is no way Aldarion
He brings the diamond back on that journey.
He could have sat down here, right?
Yeah.
And written her a letter and said, hey, Erendis, sorry about this. Obviously, this isn't going to work out.
This is never going to work out.
Yeah, I am not going to get married, and it's nothing personal. It's not you, it's me.
It's me.
All of the cliches.
All of the cliches. Yeah, could have done that in the few months that he was home between the 5-year journey and the 14-year journey.
Yeah, but he was too busy having a strop, wasn't he?
Well, that's true. He really was.
Stomping around going, my dad. But here, where he's home and he's forgiven and he's bathing in the glow of fatherly love and all that kind of thing, and he doesn't want to be bound.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the moment where he could grow a pair and write her a letter and say, sorry about this, Erendis.
But let's just make this, cut it clean. Yeah. Like Meneldur said, the diamond you brought back was not an appropriate gift for a friend. No. This is a betrothal gift.
Yes.
So you need to make up your mind and tell her. You need to make your mind known to her.
Yeah.
You can't string her along.
Aldarion is totally the kind of person who would break up over text.
Oh, yeah. He's the kind of guy who just ghosts her. Are you kidding me? I don't think he'd have the guts to break up over text.
Oh, you're not wrong.
He'd ghost and block. Yeah.
Oh, what an absolute insert word here. I'm
family-friendly show, Sara.
Family show.
Family-friendly show. All right.
Anyway, back to Aldarion. Instead of doing what he really should have done, he gets to work. And now, fair enough, he's not done a lot of work around Numenor for the last 20 years.
No.
But he does do some good stuff here. He redevelops the harbour at Romena, and he starts his analysis of the forestry situation, seeing that trees have been cut, not for ships, though, because that was forbidden.
That's right.
But they've been cut with no replanting done, which obviously is not a good thing.
No, he knows enough to know that we need to be doing the husbandry here, that we need to be doing this properly in order to make sure these renewable resources are in fact renewed.
Renewable. Yes, indeed. Yeah. You cut down a tree and you don't replace it. Guess what? You've got bare ground.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to be very useful unless, of course, you're clear cutting it so that you can till it for agriculture. But if you're doing that, that's a whole different ballgame. Here, we're just talking about forests being cut and no replanting. Yeah.
So he's actually settling down and doing some of the things his dad would want him to do. Thinking about Numenor rather than being out on the ocean or thinking about just himself. So he's actually doing some good stuff here, just not with Erendis.
Definitely not with Erendis.
Yeah. Now, we told you about the amazing PPP community after our earlier break. If you're a part of that community and you want to enjoy something even more special, come join the Fellowship of the Podcast on Patreon. You get to be the best Discord community around, one that includes host hangouts and even live episode recordings.
Absolutely. She's not exaggerating. It is a tremendous Discord community. And it's probably
it really is.
I'm just not there very often. That's one of the reasons it's so great. No, it is filled with amazing people. And I got to say, it's one of the highlights, I think, for many of our patrons. But the truth is, folks, your support there as a member of the Fellowship of the Podcast, that's what enables me to work on this full time, to do the PPP, Today's Tolkien Times, Rings of Power wrap-up, the PPP plays, get the moots going, write a sequel to the book, all of those things. That's only because of your support. So when you join, you also get things like episode postscripts. You can get an ad-free episode feed, free merch, and more.
And you can join the Questions After Nightfall episodes or even appear as a guest in the North Wing. So go to patreon.com/prancingponypod to show your support and join the Fellowship of the Podcast.
And don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends, which you can do now directly in Spotify. Okay,
well, I think we need to get back into the story, Alan. So do you want to take us back in?
I do. And this is maybe the section that my heart just sort of aches the most for. There's some lines in here that are heartbreakingly poignant, but we'll get to that. Just giving you all a preview. All right. Riding one day in the forests of the Westlands, he saw a woman whose dark hair flowed in the wind, and about her was a green cloak clasped at the throat with a bright jewel. And he took her for one of the Eldar, who came at times to those parts of the island. But she approached, and he knew her for Erendis, and saw that the jewel was the one that he had given her. Then, suddenly, he knew in himself the love that he bore her, and he felt the emptiness of his days. Erendis, seeing him, turned pale and would ride off, but he was too quick, and he said, "Too well have I deserved that you should flee from me, who have fled so often and so far. But forgive me, and stay now." They rode then together to the house of Beregar, her father, and there Aldarion made plain his desire for betrothal to Erendis. But now Erendis was reluctant, though according to custom and the life of her people, it was now full time for her marriage. Her love for him was not lessened, nor did she retreat out of guile, but she feared now in her heart that in the war between herself and the sea for the keeping of Aldarion, she would not conquer. Never would Erendis take less, that she might not lose all. And fearing the sea, and begrudging to all ships the felling of trees which she loved, she determined that she must utterly defeat the sea and the ships, or else be herself defeated utterly. But Aldarion wooed Erendis in earnest, and wherever she went, he would go. He neglected the havens and the shipyards and all the concerns of the guild of venturers, felling no trees, but setting himself to their planting only. And he found more contentment in those days than in any others of his life, though he did not know it until he looked back long after, when old age was upon him. At length, he sought to persuade Erendis to sail with him on a voyage about the island in the ship Eambar. For 100 years had now passed since Aldarion founded the Guild of Venturers, and feasts were to be held in all the havens of Numenor. To this Erendis consented, concealing her distaste and fear, and they departed from Romenna and came to Andunier in the west of the isle.
What you couldn't see was me rolling my eyes through most of that.
Or nodding violently or shaking your head violently.
All of the things, because there is a lot to unpack in this reading.
There is.
So much. We get the not quite barren moment of Aldarion riding around, doing his forestry check in the Westlands, when he spots somebody. Now, she's not dancing in the forest, but she has long, flowing, dark hair, a green cloak, and a bright jewel. Aldarion literally thinks she's an elf at first.
Reminder, folks, elves are beautiful.
Yes.
I mean, what he's seeing here is a person of incredible beauty and grace, so much so that he thinks she's one of the Eldar. I also want to remind you, he's been gone for nearly 20 years, so he probably doesn't recognize her anymore. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
But as she gets closer, indeed, he recognizes her. Hey, it's Erendis. Oh, hey, that's that beautiful bright jewel. That's the big diamond that I inappropriately gave her about 25 years before.
25 years ago. Yeah, because in the text, it does not say that when he came back, had a great blow up with his father, turned around and left again. It doesn't say that in that gap he saw Erendis at all.
No, we don't have no idea whether he communicated with her at all. He might have been there a week. Who knows? Probably longer than that, but you know.
Yeah. And now, and again, I'm just breathing in and out. 45 years after meeting her, he realizes that he loves her. Isn't that nice?
Isn't that? Now, again, 45 years, that's probably the equivalent of about, because they're both adults when they started this, it's about 2 or 3 years, but that's still a long time. You know, that's a long time. Yeah.
Anyway, this small line is quite telling. Quote, he felt the emptiness of his days.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to hold on to that line. Keep it in mind as we keep going through this section.
Please do. It's so important. Erendis, though, we're going to switch to her position first. All right. She has a very different reaction than Aldarion. Her reaction is to go white as a ghost and bail. I'm out of here.
Oh, I don't blame her.
I want to ask, can we safely assume that word of his return has reached her by now? I mean, she's not laboring under the impression that he's been dead for a decade. She's got to know he's been alive.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine so. Because
he's the king's
apart
heir.
From anything else, he's the king's heir. So the news would have gone around the island because everybody was like, oh no, Aldarion might be dead. And now he's not dead. And so the news would have gone out. And also, it doesn't tell us how long it's been since he got back, but the hint in the text is that it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
He's been doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's been trying to do the forestry thing. Right.
Right. So he's not been back a week or anything. He's been back months at least.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. That's going to sting.
Yeah.
So, of course, that would mean she knows that he's alive.
Yep.
And he just hasn't bothered to look for her.
Yeah.
Oh,
so either one of those is bad. Either he's back and he hasn't bothered to look for me because he's too proud to look for me, right? That's what the text tells us earlier. Or he's dead. I mean, I know which one I'm voting for, but yeah.
So, but neither of these is a pleasant thought for her, is it? None of this is going to be good.
As we'll learn later, it's impossible for her to turn off her love for him, right? That's something we'll... So he keeps her from running off, and he begins what appears to be a sincere and genuine apology. He starts off by saying, look, this is what I deserve. You're running from me. I get that because I've done that. I have fled from you to the sea over and over. I totally deserve you running away from me.
Well, he's not wrong here.
He's not wrong. He asked for her forgiveness. And I have to say, this followed with the fact that he was chastened in mood just a little while ago. I mean, within a 3-paragraph span, we get chastened in mood and asking for forgiveness. That's some growth. It's not enough yet, but it's some growth.
Yeah.
We'll see if it sticks. And he asks her to stay around.
So they ride back to her father's house where Aldarion, and one might put the word finally in here, but yeah, that would be premature. He makes it clear that he wants to marry Erendis.
Yeah.
Now, this is sometime after his return in 843, but it's before 850, as we'll see coming up. But that does leave us quite a little gap in there.
It does. It does, yeah.
And now it's Erendis who, quite understandably, is a bit hesitant. I mean, sure, she really should be married by now, according to custom and the life of her people.
That's true. I mean, if you recall what we read in the Nature of Middle-earth in the Lives of the Númenóreans, thus a Númenórean woman might marry when 20, marriage before full growth was not permitted, but most usually she married at about 40 to 45 years, age 24 to 25. And that's pretty much right about where she's at.
Mm-hmm.
The text goes on, marriage was considered unduly delayed in her case if postponed much beyond her 95th year, which is a calculated age of about 35.
Right. Yeah. And again, we don't know exactly what year this part of the story is taking place, but it is after 843 and before 850. So if we guesstimate 845, Erendis is 74.
Oh my gosh, she's even older than I thought. I'm thinking she's in her 50s or 60s. No, she's 70s.
She's in her 70s. So we are well past the age where women usually married, and we're getting dangerously close to that unduly delayed stage.
Yes, we are. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
She is genuinely concerned, though. She's not hesitating in order to play games with him.
No.
And she does still love him. The text says her love was not lessened. No, she's rightly afraid that she will lose the war for Aldarion's heart to the sea. And she's not wrong.
Yeah, honey, you're right. I just want to tell her, you know what?
Run, babe, run.
Yeah, you can't win this battle. You just can't win this battle. For good or for ill, though, her position is clear. I am not going to take less than 100% because if I take 90%, I'm going to lose that 90%. I have to have 100% of him or I will lose 100% of him. And not only does she have problems with the sea and its hold on Aldarion, again, with good reason, I thought this is interesting to note. She seems to also have some pretty significant ethical issues with the nature of shipbuilding because of her love for trees.
Absolutely. And as a result of these two things, combined with her all or nothing approach to Aldarion, she decides that it's now essentially a battle to the death with the sea and with sailing itself. And
you're going to lose that.
I cannot blame her.
No, I can't. But you're going to lose that battle every time.
She is going to lose that battle. She 100% is. But, I can understand her point of view.
Oh, yeah.
Aldarion has spent how many years of the last 33 abroad?
Virtually half of his adult life.
Right.
So far.
Okay. So I can understand why she might want him to commit utterly to her, because she is not unnaturally and not wrongly foreseeing him begging off again.
Yeah.
And saying, well, I want to go back to sea. And she doesn't want to go to sea with him. She hates the sea.
She hates the sea. As we'll see later, she has to hide her disgust, I mean, which that may not have been a good thing. We'll get to that. So the narrative at this point brings us back to Aldarion, right? We get his deeds and his own thoughts here. And he is said to have wooed Erendis in earnest. And I like this because, again, we've talked about Tolkien's specificity with words. It's not he appeared to woo Erendis in earnest. It's not even it is said that he wooed her in earnest. And it's certainly not that sort of Melkor reminder. He feigned even to himself that he was earnest in his wooing, Tolkien's careful with his words. Aldarion's efforts here to show his love for Erendis have to be interpreted as 100% genuine. Maybe also 100% temporary, short-lived. I'm not trying to say that he's, fully turned a new leaf, but he really is genuinely trying to win her heart. He follows her everywhere. Presumably she's okay with that because I don't want to read this as stalking.
Yeah.
I see this more as he's
otherwise,
otherwise I don't think that's happening, just to be clear. Yeah.
Otherwise I'm going to start renaming him Tar-RedFlag.
He already is Tar-RedFlag. But
he really is. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
That's Tar-Restraining-Order you're talking about.
Yeah. I also wonder how much his sudden love for her is born out of the fact that she wasn't sitting waiting in Armenelos for him.
Yeah, but I also, I have to take the words literally when he realizes the emptiness of his days. Like, I feel like that's such a moment of we're really getting into Aldarion's heart here. And for this moment, again, I think we all know this goes away. He realizes that, my goodness, as much as I've loved the sea, I have missed out. I have missed out. And I'm going to grab this opportunity with both hands. And again, this is just sort of, we talked before kind of jokingly about Meneldur just diving into his hobby of astronomy, right? I'm going to build an observatory. I'm going to be stargazer, heaven king, whatever. That's going to be my name. Aldarion. I'm not only going to be a sailor, I'm going to start a guild and I'm going to build the biggest ships ever. It's sort of that same thing taken to a relationship. I messed this up. I'm going to go into this 100%. I'm going to do this. And of course, his attention will, flit away later. But he's 100% in right now.
Right.
It's just that it's only right now. And that's the problem. Yeah.
It is. And it's also possibly, not to say that you're wrong, because I don't think you're wrong, but to add into this, he's talking about the emptiness of his days. He's not on a ship right now. He is wandering around Numenor.
Point. That's a very good point.
So maybe part of his days feeling empty is because he is not currently off sailing.
That's a great catch. You wonder, would he ever think about the emptiness of his days while he is at sea? We're never told that he does or does not. So you make a good point. No, I think you're right. By the way, it was very wise of you to say I wasn't wrong, not because I'm right, because I'm not necessarily, but because, and I want our listeners to understand this, you and I are just discussing this because it's good to discuss. And there is no explicit right or wrong here as to what Tolkien was trying to. And that's what I want folks to take away from that part of the conversation is Tolkien has, as we've pointed out before, giving us the right and the wrong in both of these people. There are moments of good in Aldarion and moments of good in Erendis. There are moments of foolishness in both of them. I think we're going to see Erendis's mistakes more later on.
Oh, yes.
Whereas right now we're seeing a lot of Aldarion's. So I think that's fair to say. But for those of you who have never read this story before and are finally becoming familiar with it through our conversation, Sara and I may disagree on some things. That's totally fine. And I just want to make sure you guys know there is no explicit way of reading Aldarion and Erendis the way Tolkien wrote it, because he wrote it amorphously on purpose. And we should take that very much so. So continue. I just want to point that out.
No, it's a really good point to make. I think it's very important when it comes to both Aldarion and Erendis. Your mileage may vary.
Well, that's a way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about how him wandering around following her like a faithful puppy was not necessarily stalking.
Hopefully not.
I read this part about him sort of abandoning his job as abdicating responsibility, but look carefully and remember what his jobs are. Lord of the Ships and Havens, Captain of the Guild Adventurers, and Master of the Forests. Now, reread this. He does, in fact, ignore his job as the Lord of the Ships and Havens and his role as Captain of the Guild Adventurers, but he very much steps into his role as Master of the Forests.
He really does. And I have to say, this is, I told you there was a moment here that I thought was one of the most heartbreakingly poignant lines, and it's coming up. This is huge. It's in setting aside the things that Erendis fears the most, the sea and the ships, while simultaneously embracing the things that she loves the most, the trees and forests. It's in doing that he finds contentment. This is a guy who's probably never been fully content his entire life, but he finds contentment in this. And I have to say, I'm not sure there are any more subtly heartbreaking lines than the one immediately following it, where we learn that he did not know it until he looked back long after, when old age was upon him.
I mean, yikes.
Oh, look, I know we can't ever know for sure that time X was our best time. I could look back on a particular period of time. I could say, 1986 was so great, best year of my life. But I don't know that for sure because I haven't lived all the years of my life. So there is that aspect of only old age can give us the benefit of knowing which was truly the best. But we should know contentment in the moment.
Right.
We should know I am content. I am more content than I have ever been while we're experiencing that contentment. And it's so sad to me that it takes Aldarion decades, arguably another century or more, before he realizes that was the time in my life I was most content.
Especially when you remember that this is decades past them being thoroughly estranged.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because, their estrangement is coming up not too far. And for him to realize this long after reuniting with her is not even an option. In fact, he might not have realized this until after she had passed, because he lived for another 100 years, long past her death. So that is just, you ache, but you also keep wanting to slap him.
Oh,
I mean,
very much
that
so.
doesn't stop. Just because you feel bad for him here too, you still want to smack him upside the head for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel a little bit for Aldarion here, because it turns out that the years where he was most content weren't the ones spent at sea with the boys.
Yeah.
They were actually spent planting trees and showing Erendis how much he loves her.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, setting aside those things you think you loved, and doing the things that it turns out brought you the most contentment. I just want to throttle him. Like, dude, wake up.
You do. But, I mean, let's face it, Aldarion, he is a literal grown-up here, right?
Very much so.
But he seems to have very little insight into his own self.
Oh, yeah.
He seems to have very little self-recognition.
The man needs therapy. He needs a good long session of
therapy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy,
just to understand himself. I'm not saying he needs to fix things. I mean, he does. But just understand. 100%. Just know thyself, man. Yeah.
Right. Because he's happy in this moment, but he doesn't seem to recognize the depth of his happiness.
No.
And he doesn't seem... there's no point at which he sits down over a glass of wine and says, well, you know what? This is really great.
Yeah, I'm really happy. And look, I'm not at sea. I'm not with my buddies. I'm not with the frat boys, I'm not off cutting trees down. I'm actually planting trees and spending time with the woman I love. How much better can it get?
Yeah. Well, he starts to mess it up almost straight away.
A little bit. I think at this point his intent is still there, but I think he might be a little clueless. We'll talk about that.
Because after all this time earnestly wooing Erendis, he decides he wants to take her on a cruise. Now, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I believe you, Sara.
And not believe that he's well aware of her dislike of the sea, but you know what? I think she would have made it fairly clear, because it does say in the text earlier that most of the women of Numenor loathed the sea.
Or didn't love it as much. Was it loathe? I didn't realize.
Well, it doesn't.
It was clear that they didn't.
But they didn't like it.
Yeah,
they didn't like it.
That's true. She will make it clear later, but
I mean, for now he does. For now he doesn't
know. We could put that in air quotes, I suppose.
Exactly, but I think this goes a long way towards telling us again. This is a man not given to self-reflection.
No. It's now the year Second Age 850. And by the way, you all know I'm not here to defend Aldarion. Because I'm the one who just said.
Defend Erendis. Believe me, when we get to some of her choices later.
We will definitely, take our turns, smacking that pinata like we do the Feanor one. 100 years after he founded the Guild Adventurers in SA 750. That is how we can pin this on the timeline, right? That's how we know all of this wooing took place between 843 when he came back and 850. And that's why we were estimating that 845 to 850 period, because he'd been back long enough to sort of start his job as the Master of Forests before he sought her out. But here it is, 850. The guild is going to have a series of parties in the harbor, so he wants her to come along to a feast.
Yes, come to a party, baby, on board ship.
Yeah.
It's not her dream date.
No.
Right? And she has to, the text tells us, hide her distaste and fear.
And that's where I want to say, maybe you could have said something. Like, just say, and even though you're willing to do it, like say, I need you to know, I don't really like the sea. And in fact, I'm kind of afraid of it, but I'm going to do this for you. I want to honor you. I want to, accept your invitation and do this thing that you want to do. I just need you to know the sacrifice I'm making. Yes. And then that way he can decide, oh, okay, well then we'll just take horses, or, okay, we'll just do this one cruise, but we won't do it again. I mean, communicate. Right? Communicate.
You've just pinpointed it.
Yep.
Yes.
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
You have absolutely hit the heart of the problem between Aldarion and Erendis.
So much unspoken. Much unspoken.
Again, you can decide, listeners, which one of these two Egypt, you think is the biggest Egypt of all Egypts.
Yeah, this isn't about which one isn't an idiot.
No.
Which one's the bigger
No,
idiot.
they are both clearly. But the main problem here is that they don't communicate.
Yeah,
and this is not the only time. And they failed to communicate before this. Aldarion turns up with a great big diamond and fails to tell her this is not an engagement present.
Yeah.
Right? He beggars off for 19 years and fails to tell her that, I'm really not interested in marriage. You might want to go and find someone else.
I don't want to get bound. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Erendis says, okay, I'll come on a boating date, and fails to tell him how much she dislikes and fears the sea.
Distaste and fear. Yeah.
Sigh.
I know.
Yeah.
So she agrees, and they go all the way around the island, starting from Romenna, which lays at the head of the firth between Orostar and Hyarostar. Remember, take a look at the map of Numenor. It's a star, right? It's shaped like a star, and it's got these 5 little promontories. And Orostar and Hyarostar mean Eastlands and Southeastlands, respectively. So that's on the east side of the island. And they sail all the way to Andunier on the western end of Andustar, which is the Westlands. So if you look at the map of the island and you look at the scale and you remember that it is twice the size of the island of Great Britain, and they have to go all the way out that firth before they can start to go around, we're talking about a really long voyage, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 2,500 miles. That's a long voyage. This isn't taking them a day. This isn't taking them a week. This is a long trip.
But definitely being quicker by horse.
Very much so. And a lot shorter in distance because you're cutting across the middle of the star.
Exactly.
Instead of going all the way around the firth, all the way around the tip of the northern one, and all the way to the end of the western one.
Ugh, I mean, poor Erendis. I mean, I can't imagine she's been on board ship very often in her life, if at all, before this.
If at all, yeah.
And the very first voyage, 2,000 plus miles.
I mean, that's the thing. You think about, Romenna to Andunier, it's not that big a deal. It's from the west side of the island, or east side to the west side. But look at the map, folks. That's a long journey when you realize just how big that island is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the part that we had to skip, because we can't read everything, they get there and they meet with Valandil, the Lord of Andunier. In fact, he's the first Lord of Andunier, actually, because Valandil was born in Second Age 630, so he's 70 years Aldarion's senior, and is his first cousin, because his mother, Silmarion, is the sister of Meneldur, Aldarion's father.
Right, and should be queen.
Should be queen. That's a whole other story.
Yeah. Valandil should be the king's heir. Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been different if only?
You wonder. I've always thought that's an interesting question. Like, was the fall just something that was inevitable, that was going to happen eventually at some point? Maybe that would have delayed it. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I love the idea that things could have been really different if they'd just done the right thing and allowed Silmarion to be queen. Yeah. Because let's face it, her line turns out to be the good line.
The very good line. Absolutely. Yes. And we only know that in hindsight, of course, but it's sort of the way things work. Yeah. So Valandil, good guy, holds a feast for his cousin on the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Guild of Adventurers. And he's just trying to be a nice guy. He offers a toast to Erendis, this beautiful young lady. Remember, he's an old guy, right? He's 70 years older than Aldarion. He calls her Uineniel, which means daughter of Uinen, and the new lady of the sea.
Yikes. Big yikes.
Social faux pas. Yeah.
Oh, dear. I mean, poor guy. He's not to know that, is he? But you can just imagine how well that went over. Well, in fact, you don't have to imagine. The text tells us. It says that Erendis was sitting next to Valandil's, of course, unnamed wife.
I knew you'd point that out. Yeah.
And has thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She rejects that name completely. And she doesn't just think reject it.
No. She says it. Absolutely.
She says it with her whole chest. Not only saying she is no daughter of the Maya, but going so far as to name Uinen her foe.
That's a bold move.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm going to name a Maya spirit, somebody that everybody on the island of Numenor almost worships. My foe.
Particularly a mariner.
Yeah, all the mariners.
Like the dude she's probably going to marry. I wonder what Aldarion made of that.
I know. She does say this with her whole chest, but you also wonder, it's a party. Does she just kind of lean over to Valandil's wife and said, I am no daughter of Uinen. She's my foe. And only the wife heard it? Or does she stand up and slam her goblet to the table and say, "Don't you dare, Valandil. I am no daughter of that woman.
Oh,
She
can
is
you
my
imagine
foe."
just how suddenly quiet the party gets when she says this?
and Aldarion's like,
Oh, don't know who that is.
awkward moment. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Yeah, because
goodness.
it doesn't make it clear if she says
No.
this out loud for the entire party to hear, or if it was just like said to the person sitting
Yeah.
next to her.
Which I mean, realistically, probably that.
Yes.
Because she's not somebody who typically boldly stands up and says her things yet. She will be.
Oh, yeah.
She will become that. But I mean, this is the same woman who didn't want to say, "I don't like the sea. I'd really rather not take a ship."
Yeah.
Right? She hides that. And this is sort of a political thing because it's the Lords of Endunier. This is, you know, I feel like she probably would have been quiet about it, but part of me wants to have her stand up, slam the goblet to the table, and be like,
I think
heck
you're right.
no.
I don't think at this stage of Erendis' life, this is something she would have done. It feels like she's confiding in the wife of Valandil.
Who probably has some sympathy in that regard. And we don't know anything about Valandil's sailings or anything, but the women of Numenor do not particularly like the sea because the sea takes their men away from them.
Yeah. On the other hand, I mean, let's not forget this story was written down a long, long time after it happened. So somebody reported what she said.
That's true. Valandil's unnamed wife at least said something about it. That's true. Oh, man. Well, speaking of awkward moments, we've got a hard talk coming up. Sara, would you take us through the next part of the reading?
Aldarion returned to Erendis and besought her to be betrothed. Yet still she delayed, saying, "I have journeyed with you by ship, Lord. Before I give you my answer, will you not journey with me ashore to the places that I love? You know too little of this land for one who shall be its king." Therefore they departed together and came to Emerie, where were rolling downs of grass, and it was the chief place of sheep pasturage in Numenor, and they saw the white houses of the farmers and shepherds, and heard the bleating of the flocks. There Erendis spoke to Aldarion and said, "Here could I be at ease." "You shall dwell where you will as wife of the king's heir," said Aldarion, "and as queen in many fair houses, such as you desire." "When you are king, I shall be old," said Erendis. "Where will the king's heir dwell meanwhile?" "With his wife," said Aldarion, "when his labours allow, if she cannot share in them." "I will not share my husband with the Lady Uinen," said Erendis. "That is a twisted saying," said Aldarion. "As well might I say that I would not share my wife with the Lord Orome of Forests, because she loves trees that grow wild." "Indeed you would not," said Erendis, "for you would fell any wood as a gift to Uinen, if you had a mind." "Name any tree that you love, and it shall stand till it dies," said Aldarion. "I love all that grow in this isle," said Erendis.
Check and mate.
Oh, boy.
This game gets, I mean, we can point to the errors and the tactical mistakes, but that's...
oh, my goodness, yes.
So after this cruise on Eambar and the feast where she was very much against her desire, named Uineniel, Erendis is hit with a wave of doubt. But it isn't just these moments, like being called the daughter of Uinen, that lead her to doubt. It's because Aldarion has stopped doing what he'd been doing during the earnest wooing of the last reading.
Yeah. I mean, remember he'd neglected the havens and the shipyards and focused on replanting trees only. Well, that is now over.
Yep.
He's back to working at Romena, building up the harbour again with big seawalls, and even building what appears to be a lighthouse on the Isle of Tol Uinen.
Remember that Tol Uinen is an island that lies in the Firth of Romena, so it's certainly a logical place to build a lighthouse. I know the text doesn't say it's explicitly a lighthouse, but come on. It's a tall tower, and it's called the Light Tower, so you don't need me to paint a picture more than that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But as he shifts his focus back to the sea and to ships, Erendis is feeling those fears come back into the picture. Defeat the sea utterly, or else be defeated utterly.
I think we're going to see that line come back in our minds over and over again. That is her mindset. It is exactly what fuels so much of the conflict going forward for her, from her perspective.
I agree. I mean, to his credit, Aldarion isn't said to stay doing these tasks for years or anything.
True.
He does the job, then he comes back to Erendis, and again looking to become betrothed.
Yeah. I mean, he comes back and pops the question. She holds off on a decision, and I love this, not out of like any sort of malice or you've made me wait, so I'm going to make you wait. She just says, you know what? I've done this thing that you wanted me to do. I've gone with you on Aambar on that long journey. I want you to come now to the place I love, and reminding him, and maybe this was a tactical error, maybe it wasn't. She's certainly right, though, that he doesn't seem to know much about the actual, land where he's going to be king. He's been gone so many times for so long. And even when he's back, he's almost exclusively focused on the harbors and ships, not on the land of Numenor itself, let alone its people.
Indeed. So they head inland to her home region of Emerie, and that's an inland region in the central part of Numenor, the Mitalmar, composed of rolling grassy hills where the sheep of Numenor are pastured. And we get this brief but telling conversation.
I almost did that during your reading. like we've never done what am I looking for? Sort of ambience and things. But I was like, they heard the bleating of the flocks. I had to fight every bit of my self-control.
I would have corpsed if you'd done it.
I was like, I can't do that to Sara. I just can't do it.
So you waited until afterwards and did it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's discussion now. It's a little more appropriate. Yeah.
Anyway, sheep aside, we get this brief but telling conversation between Aldarion and Erendis now.
That's right. I mean, seriously, by the way, if you were to compare to the wailing of the gulls, I know which sound I'm picking, and it ain't the gulls. I mean, I much prefer the sound of the sheep.
Yeah, same.
The smell of neither, frankly, but that's not the point. So Erendis is pointing out, look, this is the kind of place I would enjoy. Away from the bustle of the port cities, right? That's one of the things we saw specifically she didn't like was the busyness of the port. It's away from the sea. It's in the green hills of the countryside. It's on the, they're not like on the slopes of the Meneldur, but this is the Mitalmar. It's a higher region. The airs are different. This is just a beautiful, quiet, restful place.
Right. And on the surface, Aldarion appears to want to give her what she wants. He says, you can live wherever you want as my wife, now and after I'm the king. But does he really? I mean, is he really listening? I don't think he's really hearing what she's saying.
This feels like overcoming an obstacle. This feels like a salesman trying to make the close.
Right.
This is, you're going to get whatever you want. Say yes. I've asked you to marry me.
Yes.
You
can have as many houses as you want. Of course, most of them are in Armenelos, but hey, I know. I honestly, I don't think through most of this conversation that either is actually hearing the other. Exactly.
I was going to say, because it starts out as him not hearing her, but I think she doesn't hear him very well either.
No, neither of them are really listening. No. They're both saying things, they're both responding, probably in the ways that they think, okay, this is my response now to what's being said, but they're not listening to each other.
No, they're not. They're certainly not understanding each other. No.
Exactly. And she also raises a really good point. By the time he becomes king, I shall be old, she says.
She's not wrong. I want to discuss this real quick and do the maths. Notice, by the way, I said maths. That's a weird word for me.
Done.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's the adaptation.
We'll get you to say herb next. Or is there a line?
There might be a line. It's an H-shaped line. So Elros was 442 and he died. Vardamir passed authority to his son Amandil right away because he was 381. So Amandil took the throne at 250. This is what I want to look at. Amandil, the second in effect king, was 250 when he became the king. His son Elendil ascended at 240. His son Meneldur ascended at the relatively young age of 193. So even if Aldarion took the throne at the age of 200, barely older than Meneldur was, but certainly younger than either of the two previous kings, let's say he did that at SA 900, Erendis would already be 129, which is around the 46 equivalent for a standard Numenorian. But we also remember she's pureblood descent in the shorter-lived house of Beor, so probably closer to the equivalent of 50. So I'm not so sure, maybe a little bit more, but I'm not so sure I want to hear her say, I shall be old, when she's talking about an age that's still younger than me.
Yeah,
but
same.
Let's be honest.
Passing over that.
Passing over that. She's right. She's certainly right when it comes to like the prime of her life.
Yes. Yeah.
And certainly
she's
her
definitely going to
childbearing
be beyond
years.
that. Yes. Yeah. And of course, the older you get, your priorities change, right?
Absolutely.
So she's not going to want to be the pomp and circumstance queen. She's going to be wanting to live somewhere quiet where she can enjoy the remainder of her years, that sort of thing. So
it's not an unreasonable thing.
Yeah, she's asking the questions that she should be asking.
She is asking the right question, right?
But Aldarion isn't listening.
No, he's not.
No, because she follows that up with an important question to ask of the man who claims to want to marry you. Where will you want to live before you become king? And that is important because she suspects, and she's probably right, that he wants to live on the coast.
Yeah.
Right? But obviously, if they get married, say, now-ish...
He'd want to live on the ship if he could.
Yeah, if they get married sort of now-ish, then there's going to be a whole lot of years of being married before he becomes king.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in that time?
And in theory, that's also the time when they would have kids. So it's hugely important to ask this question. Where will we raise a family is what she is asking.
Exactly. I mean, he'd have to reside in Meneldur once he becomes king.
Right.
So she's asking what the next 50 years or so would be like. That's not a small amount of time.
No, it's not at all.
No.
Where are we going to live? Yeah.
Exactly. And he doesn't exactly answer.
No.
He doesn't name a place.
No.
Only that he would live with her, presumably wherever she wanted, when his labors allow, if she cannot share in them.
Okay.
Goodness, there's a lot of heavy lifting being done in that.
Yeah, there's two things there. So we've got the condition that he would live with her when his labors would allow, and then the condition to that if she can't share in those labors. So let's talk about both of those parts.
Yeah.
The idea that she could or would share in his work, but also the idea that he would live with her only when his work permitted. Priorities of a married couple need to be different than the priorities of these two single people.
Yes.
And I think he's not getting that.
No, I think he wants to be married to Erendis, but have exactly the same life and choices and freedoms as he does now.
Yeah. You don't mind if we have an heir and a spare as long as I can still spend the rest of my life at sea, right? You don't have a problem with that, do you?
No, that'd be fine, won't it?
You're always welcome to come aboard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can share in all of my voyages. It would be lovely.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you on board with me. Are you kidding? Are you kidding, sir?
And that's the problem. He isn't.
No, he's actually dead serious. Yeah.
He is 100% serious when he's saying to her, I will do this, I will do that. And these conditionals that he's putting into that sentence.
When his labors allow. If she can.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
You're not kidding about the heavy lifting. Oh, man.
Yeah. So this is what I mean by there's things being said here, but none of it is communication.
Yeah. I mean, when his labors allow is such a broad exception. It could mean none of the time at all.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well say when I feel like it.
Yes. Thank you. That's exactly what he's saying. When I deign to live with you, when I deign to leave the sea, when I get tired of the sea, I'll come and spend some time with you and then I'll go back.
Won't that be nice?
Because that's my work.
You're a lucky, lucky woman.
Because I should grace you with my presence once a decade. Yeah. Now, the next part of this exchange is where things start to get testy, right?
That's putting it one way.
Yeah. I mean, Erendis is the one who fires the first shot, right? I'm not going to share you with Uinen. And again, we come back, either defeat the sea utterly or be utterly defeated. Keep reminding yourself of that, folks, because that is absolutely the driving element here in everything she does.
Absolutely. Now, Aldarion's analogy to Orome in response to what she says, it might not be entirely without merit,
maybe
but the
mostly.
fact that he jumps to that defense immediately,
yes,
rather than acknowledge Erendis' valid concern is par for the course.
Yeah, very much so. It is. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, he makes a point. It's not a very good point because the analogy to Orome draws an equivalency between her love of the trees and his love of the sea. And you could make that argument, say she loves the trees as much as he loves the sea. The problem is she doesn't go around spending 15 years wandering around a forest while Aldarion sits around on his hands.
Exactly.
That's a huge difference.
Yes.
She can go into the forest and come back that night. He goes off in the sea. He's gone for years.
Yes.
This is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's completely missed the point.
The same.
No,
yes.
He's totally missing the point.
Yeah. One of these things is not like the other.
Not at all. This isn't apples and oranges. This is apples and bread rolls. I mean, we're not even talking, or apples and rocks,
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, I mean, this becomes not so much a conversation, more a kind of shots fired.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. Because she bites right back, doesn't she?
Yeah. She bites right back. You'd cut a tree down to give to your mistress the sea.
Yep.
Okay, she's not wrong, because that's indeed what he has done many times. Mm-hmm. And so he tries a last-ditch effort to keep himself seeming noble.
I love that.
And this is exactly
what he's doing.
This.
He's wanting to make himself look like the good guy. Oh, name a tree that shall live forever.
Oh, good Lord.
The cringe.
Yeah. It is so cringe because it's meaningless.
It is. It's utterly meaningless.
It is totally meaningless.
Point to one tree?
A tree, and you can have that one till it dies. Well, thanks. So not the point.
So not the point. And so I love what her response is, because like you said, this has now been a battle of shots fired. And her shots fired is, oh, really? Oh, name a tree and I love them all. Stop cutting all of them down, which I want to remind you folks is exactly what he was doing when he was the most content in his life. Mm-hmm. He'd stopped cutting them down and was focused only on replanting them. And that's when he was the happiest. Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's just...
Oh, if he'd just indulged in a bit of self-reflection.
Just think it through, man.
Yeah.
Stop cutting them down. And yet at the same time, because she's not communicating with clarity, she's just doing these as shots fired. She's not having a dialogue, partly because he's not willing to, but also because I don't think she's willing to. Right? This is defeat the sea utterly or be utterly defeated. It is all or nothing Erendis.
Yeah. She's going about it the wrong way, though, isn't
she? She's going about it the wrong way. And we're starting to see her flaws, if you want to call them that, or her weak spots.
They're both filled with pride, just in different ways.
Yes.
And for both of them, this means that they're not willing to, sit down and tell each other what they're actually thinking. So if Erendis had stopped right here and said, okay. So
let's start over.
This is becoming a bit of an argument, and I don't want an argument, but here's the thing. All right. Here is what I fear.
Yeah.
This is what I'm worried about. If we get married, what I'm really worried about is that you're going to go away for another 20 years and leave me alone. And I don't want to be alone with possibly bringing up the kids on my own, all of these things. She does not say to him, these are my fears. This is why I feel this way, because those fears are legitimate.
Oh, yeah.
This is what he's proved to her all along is what he's going to do, to just get on board ship and beg her off for 15 years.
He was gone for 26 out of 33 years.
Right. So she hasn't got a lot of evidence to say that he'll behave in any other way just because he's married to her.
Right.
Right. But they don't have this conversation.
No, she doesn't want to. Yeah. She doesn't say, this is what I fear. Can you assuage this fear? Can you address this? Can you at least, first of all, tell me that you hear me?
Yeah.
And that you understand.
Yeah. But neither does Aldarion.
No, he doesn't.
He's not honest with her.
No.
He isn't saying to her, look, I can't promise you I'm never going to go back to sea because the sea is my great love and I will want to do that. And then they have a conversation, at which point, to be honest, two grown-ups might have said, I'm not sure we're compatible.
This might not work, right?
Yeah.
But, if you really wanted it to work, you could say, well, I would agree to travel no more than X percentage of the time.
Yeah.
1
year out of every 5.
Exactly. Something like that. Reach a compromise. Compromise that works for you both. But
you can only do that when you communicate.
Thank you. Yes, you can. Oh, man. Well, folks, I got to tell you, we actually had a whole nother bullet point ready for discussion, but we're already long enough, and it's a long discussion point, I promise you. We're going to actually move that to the next episode, which is fine because this is a 10-episode journey. Who knows? Maybe it'll end up being 11 episodes by the time all is said and done. But yeah, we're gonna set that one aside for now. So therefore, they departed together and came to the Prancing Pony, where we're rolling mugs of ale, and it was the chief place of hobbit pasturage in Bree. Nah. Sara.
That was bad.
That was bad. Sara, what has Bartleman brought for us today?
Oh, Oh, good grief. I'm sorry.
Not
I'm
sorry.
still,
Yeah.
wool gathering. Sorry.
Well played.
Yeah, that was a terrible pun.
It was. It really
was. Okay, so we have a really interesting question for us to address today, which is very much talking to what the sort of things are that we've been discussing during this episode. And that is, here's the question. How does Aldarion's love for the sea conflict with his responsibilities to Numenor and his relationship with Erendis? In other words, what does this suggest about the nature of duty versus personal desire?
Oh, yeah, that's how it interferes. It's not that loving the sea is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
You could love the sea and be perfectly fine as a king if you remember that your duty requires you to pay attention to the land.
Yes.
He's got an obligation, even as the king's heir, I would say, to be the understudy, right? He never knows. I mean, yes, in theory, Meneldur will live to be close to 400 years old, but you never know when something might happen. I mean, it's pretty rare that they died of anything. We read that in the Nature of Middle-earth, that they basically very rarely died of anything other than an old age. Very much a gift of the Valar thing. But again, it's not impossible. And his job is to learn. He's the understudy. You're going to be king someday. You need to prepare for that. You need to be ready so that the day you become king, you're actually a competent one.
Yes.
So it's interfered with his preparation. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the point where he's king and seen how it's interfered with that.
Right. But the rift with his father, that is not a healthy thing.
No, it's not at all.
He has demonstrated that you can rebel against the king.
Yes.
This is not a good thing either.
No, and it's like we talked about earlier, it's sort of opening the door for the shadow, because that authority, we have to remember the system that Tolkien's working under here. We have a monarchy that is a good monarchy, that is a legitimate monarchy, that is a monarchy blessed by God, that Eru established this through Manwë, and therefore it is right. And that's the thing we have to be, it's especially those of us who didn't come of age in monarchies, sort of look to monarchies and be like, what? But that's, Tolkien's trying to tell us this is a righteous, a proper authority.
Exactly.
So for him to do that is actually the wrong thing. Rebelling against the king isn't a teenager rebelling against his dad.
No, this is a terrible choice.
This is a terrible, terrible decision. It is an evil choice. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. It's an evil choice to rebel against the king.
I agree.
Because you're rebelling against the authority of Manwë and Eru himself. I mean, that's why it opens the door for the shadow.
Well.
It never does. Just ask our Pharazôn.
Yeah, indeed.
4,000 years later, that was a bad idea.
The second part of the question was about his relationship with Erendis.
Yeah.
And I want to address that because it's not that I think Aldarion has a duty to Erendis at this point so
much.
Not
yet, correct.
But he does have an obligation.
That's a good way of putting it. I like that distinction.
Yeah. If you are earnestly wooing this woman, if you have asked her to marry you, then you have an obligation there. And he's not fulfilling that obligation even right now. I
would even go back in time a little further to him giving the diamond as a gift when he's not betrothed. Yeah. Because what he's sending, you have an obligation to everybody that you communicate with to be at least honest about things. And he's not being honest. He's not being forthright. You're stringing her along and you have an obligation to not do that, a moral obligation. Yeah. So, and again, that's related to his love for the sea, because why does he turn around and leave so quickly after that journey? Because he's been punished. Yes. He's had stuff taken away from him.
Yeah, and he's stomping around like a stroppy teenager as a result.
Like a toddler, for crying out loud. And it's
this is not a man who will brook being defied.
You could just finish the sentence that this is not a man.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, he's not to me, he is not an impressive man.
No, not at all.
I think that the choices that he makes are incredibly selfish.
He's thin-skinned and a little petty.
Oh, very much so. Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, if you won't let me have my ships in the harbor when we've come through strong winds, then I'm just leaving.
Yeah. I see. Well, I might as well just say that I wouldn't share my wife with, the Lord Orome. Really? That's your response to that? Not, wow, that's pretty strong. That came out of nowhere. What made you say that?
Right. But that's because an actual grown-up would take a beat and go, oh, ow, ouch.
That hurt.
Need to talk about that, actually.
Yeah.
Not him. He just comes back with a, well,
he jumps
your mother is
immediately
this
to
too.
yeah, exactly your mama jokes. He jumps to, you know, to being defensive immediately.
Yeah. I think that says a lot about his character, and that is not impressive.
No, it isn't.
No, I mean, Erendis, equally unimpressive in the way in which she doesn't communicate and she bites at him rather than stopping and saying, this is how I really feel.
Yeah.
On the other hand, she is not the king in waiting.
No, and that's the thing. That's where we get back to the question that was asked, which is about, you know, this duty, this sense of, you know, the love of the sea conflicts because it stops him from doing his duty. And with Erendis, it stops him from fulfilling his obligation. First, his obligation is just a person not romantically involved to not string her along. And now as the intended betrothed, to communicate openly with her and to make compromises and start to build that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does have an obligation. And later he will, once they are wed, he will have a duty and he will also fail in that.
Yes.
So, and then we'll get to the fact that they both have the duty as parents and they really screw that one up
boy.
royally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And that's where I really have zero patience with either of them, because when we get to that bit, we'll put a pin in that, because I could go on for another half an hour about the damage they do to Ankalime, but we will get there.
And the future of the kingdom as a result.
Indeed.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Please come back next week when Erendis gives us all some truly wonderful advice, proving her wise.
Yeah, and then plights her troth to Aldarion, bringing that wisdom thoroughly into question.
Yes, it does.
Now, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Reynolds, barleyman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
And please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find show notes, outtakes, and Prancing Pony ponderings. Now, we are changing vendors for our merch at the moment, but our online storefront should be back up soon. You can get all sorts of cool PPP merch there, including all of the amazing chapter art that Megan's been doing for us for 3+ seasons.
Now, we're all about the books here at Prancing Pony Podcast, so be sure to also visit our library page. And we try to make sure that any book we've mentioned on the show is linked there for you to purchase. We do get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, so thank you for that.
Indeed. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kirdan's contribution tier. I'll start with Demay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Brian in the UK, Jerry from Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Zaksu in Illinois, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Vivian in California, and James in Massachusetts.
There's also Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, Olivia in London, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Kevin in Massachusetts, Bruce in California, Joe in Maryland, Scott in California, Jeffrey in Michigan, and Paul in Colorado. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed. Thank you.
Now make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your earnest wooing, though it won't do you any good at all, to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com.
Barliman does have a lot of mail to sort through, though, so we'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
However, farewell, folks.